I was just talking about some friends and family about just what's happening in the States here with regards to the debt and with regards to the devaluing of the dollar, the US dollar. And I'll just tell you guys that a lot of people are, including myself, are involved in cryptocurrencies. And you guys may say, well, this is a very risky thing, and it's a tulip rally, and it's a tulip thing, and it's total nonsense, and it's a scam. I'll tell you guys something. I'll tell you exactly the number. Let's go to coin market cap. There are exactly 9,478 cryptocurrencies on planet Earth. The total market cap of all of them, I would say, pales in comparison to the securities markets. You're talking about $2 trillion market capitalization. So you may say it's not stocks. They're not stocks. They're currency. So how can you say market cap? So if you count all of the, available coins of, the total of all these different cryptocurrencies, not these 9,000, almost 500 cryptocurrencies, and you multiply it by the the price times the available or the coin supplies, you basically get 2 trillion, a little bit over 2 trillion market cap. It's interesting. See, as it stands, the 24-hour volume, the last 24 hours, $150 million. I'm sorry, $150 billion were exchanged hands. That actually, again, still pales in comparison. What does that mean, my friends? It means that we're just scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface. And I'll tell you guys something. I would say most of these coins are, in fact, scammy and just, based on nothing. You're talking about like pump and dumps. But then you have some of these coins, or I would say tokens, are actually based on tech projects that are where the people that are involved in these things are actually working to shift paradigms. Whether you're talking about shifting paradigms in the internet, like I'm talking to you guys right now, for example, somebody's monitoring this page and making sure I don't say certain things, right? So they're censoring me. They're collecting my data. There's an algorithm that listens to my words. There are like buttons that are to where I'm actually, we're basically the people that are running this website are programming someone like me and other users and you guys to seek out, to seek validation via, like buttons and emojis and whatever it is. So now we're talking about certain people that are developing, social media and internet to where there is no censorship, there is no data collection, there is no dopamine fix. They're trying to wean people off of these things. They're trying to eliminate these things. So now you may say, well, how are these people going to make money? There are other ways. If you're talking about people using something to where they actually enjoy using it and they're not like constantly, they're not constantly being monitored for whatever it is that they're posting or whatever it is that they're doing. It's a better user experience. Then you're talking about, it can only be good for the people who created it, right? As opposed to Facebook, where now people are just like leaving Facebook and boycotting it or whatever it is. Some people, many people. So stuff like that. Or you're talking about, for example, there are other projects where they're trying to decentralize just currency and commodities and anything, really. When I say decentralized, I mean totally offshore and totally just not under the guise of auspices of, regulators. So you guys may say, well, all this stuff is used by nefarious actors, right? Well, there's a thing, guys. If you think about this, look at somebody like JP Morgan, right? You look at all these different banks, investment banks. I'll tell you guys straight up, these guys sit around and they manipulate currencies, they manipulate commodities, they manipulate the markets. And what consequence do they have? They have to pay fines, right? So for them, these guys are making trillions, hand over fist. So for them, a nominal fine of 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million, $10 million every so often is just the cost of doing business. Not only that, they're in cahoots with these regulators. They're friends with these regulators. It's politics, politics, Wall Street, regulators. All these people are together. So now you're talking about a thing where something is decentralized, not only decentralized, but not under the guise of regulators. It doesn't mean that the only people you're going to have are nefarious actors. You have nefarious actors on Wall Street. If you guys ever actually see the movie Wall Street, you have those kind of people, and it's rampant, right? Who's to say that those people are not involved themselves with nefarious actors? So you have them everywhere, all things being equal, guys. So, I call BS on that argument, but yeah, so there's a lot of these projects, and people are involved in them, and these projects have tokens, coins that are attached to them, currencies. And I'll tell you guys something, there's a lot of people that are getting involved in investing into these things. Why? Because they see what's happening with fiat currency, with the dollar, with other currencies. It's interesting, you guys, there's one currency that I personally invested in, and I noticed, for example, there's a lot of people from Turkey, and I see this on social media, that are tweeting about it all the time. Not just about this one, about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Why? Because the Turkish lira is tanking for various reasons, and Erdogan basically sent out armies of these guys, just regular investors, guys who support him, citizens. And he said, guys, go out into the open market, go out into these brokerages and buy a bunch of crypto. We need to have some sort of store of value because the lira is tanking, and we need to acquire a bunch of crypto. Again, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's just altcoins, the rest of these 9,000s of coins, and we need some value here. We need some value because we're not going to survive. And then we need to be able to sell those things, for U.S. dollars on the open market. Little does he realize that also the dollar's about to tank. So now we're going to have a complete paradigm shift in what is tender, what is the store of value, especially when something is connected to a revolutionary technology that may revolutionize, let's say, the internet, commodities markets, what have you, right? So that's really, my friends, what I've been observing. It's interesting, like, I was talking to people about this, some friends about this. Everybody thinks Bitcoin is the thing. Guys, if you remember when the cell phones came out, if you guys ever watched the show, Saved by the Bell, if you guys remember the character Zach Morris, he had a giant phone. It was like the size of a brick. Now imagine, I'll show you guys an example. Whatever, it was just like a brick phone. It was like a giant phone. If you guys have seen the movie Wall Street, that the phone that he had on his boat, it was just this giant, like, brick phone with a giant antenna. That's what he had. That's essentially what he had. And so that was the first cell phone, right? And the speed and, the connection and all these kind of things, and you have to pay through the nose to use it. And that's pretty much Bitcoin, guys. That's what Bitcoin is. So now now you ask the question, so what, if that's a brick phone, then what is the iPhone? What is a smartphone? Well, we have tech that is being developed that is essentially going to be the next thing that will eclipse, I dare say, eclipse blockchain, which is the tech that Bitcoin and other coins are based on, and the tech that will eclipse Bitcoin, the coin that will eclipse Bitcoin itself, my friends. And we have just really begun to scratch the surface here. And it's interesting, guys. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and he basically told me, I feel like cryptocurrencies are like Moshiach. He told me, he's like, I feel like this is, obviously we understand this is the Messianic era, where basically, these regulators and all of these bodies are just going to fall away, and we're just going to have this, something that's organic and something that is, that works in concert with something called biomimicry, where it's going to mimic the natural flow of biological processes around the world. It's a longer discussion, guys. It's a really longer discussion, but the kids are my only hope, because a lot of people right now are talking about Has v'Shalom, Gog Magog, right? You guys see what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. You see what's happening with China and Taiwan. I don't know if you guys heard, like Biden recently announced that he recognizes the Armenian genocide, which is, I get it, but now we have a situation where Turkey, again, I mentioned Turkey, hopping up those cryptocurrencies and because their currency is tanking, but now Turkey is irate. Erdogan is irate at this announcement, and we're about to see something. I don't know. I really don't know. But there's a lot of fronts things that are happening on many fronts. Then now we have a situation where we found out that John Kerry has basically given Iran information about Israeli maneuvers in Syria, and who knows what else he told them. He basically did the equivalent of what Jonathan Pollard did back in the day. The only difference is Pollard actually went to prison. And it's whatever Kerry did, it's actually a crime punishable, I don't want to say by what, guys. Again, I'm on Facebook parole here. I don't want to say by what. I really don't. So a lot of things are happening. A lot of things are happening all at once. There was another front. Oh yeah, and also if you guys heard that, I guess Biden is going to start drawing or just removing troops from Afghanistan ahead of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and even Anthony Blinken, if I recall, recently said that. I'll tell you guys exactly what he said. He conceded basically Afghanistan. Here. Blinken says U.S. pullout from Afghanistan could lead to civil war, Taliban takeover. My friends, I mean, we're 20 years later and we're back to the same old, And, guys, I'll play for you if you want. I'll play for you. There's a scene that I saw today, and it actually has a dub. It's dubbed over in English. If you guys, I think you guys can understand it. I don't know if there'll give me a copyright strike here if I try to play it for you guys. But you know what? I'll play the audio if you guys can hear it. I'll play the audio for you. Just let me get off of Bluetooth here, off my headphones. Oops. And I'll play the audio. The name of the movie is called Ninth. In Russian, it's called Devятая Rota, Ninth Company. It is a movie about a division in Afghanistan, when the Soviets were in Afghanistan, and it's a particular division called the Ninth Company, Ninth Division. And this is basically an officer, I guess a colonel or whatever. He's basically explaining facts about Islam, and specifically about Islam in Afghanistan. See, somebody wrote a comment here. Afghanistan is known as a graveyard for the empires. It's a fact of history, guys. So, yeah, I mean, like America went into Afghanistan 20 years ago, and immediately a lot of people commented and said Afghanistan is the place where empires go to die. Once you put troops into Afghanistan, that's already the telltale sign that basically your empire is 10 or 20 or 30 years away from just basically done. It's like an omen, really. See, it says, no one in history has ever managed to conquer Afghanistan. All right, I'll play you guys the audio, and then we can talk about it. Just 1 second. Get the volume up here. I don't know if I can show you the video, so you can hear the audio. This is from the movie Devятая Rota. Oh, you guys can hear it.
It is a multinational state. A minimum of knowledge necessary to interact with the locals.
Let's get the Russian accent. Yeah.
You'll find in this pamphlet here. See it? But
they're the base in Afghanistan.
The most important thing for you to remember when you cross the border is that you will be inside of an Islamic state.
I think they're in. Oh, okay.
Islam
Listen.
is not just another religion.
Not just another religion.
It's an entirely different world with its own set of laws, an alternate view of life, and of death. A true Muslim is not afraid to die in battle, and those who perish while fighting against the infidels which is us. Get a one-way ticket to heaven, where they will get everything they lacked in this life. Water, bountiful harvests, and big-bosomed virgins, boys. Relations with women in Islam is a separate conversation. The most sacred thing to a Muslim is his home, haram. This is where the word haram comes from. The second meaning of this word is not allowed or forbidden. Looking at Muslim women, haram. Anything with sexual relations, haram. It's haram to show a Muslim any obscene gesture, which all of you are used to. For that you can get a bullet from a peaceful civilian. On the other hand, a Muslim will never defile his own home with blood. The moment you step foot in a village, you are considered to be a guest. Killing a guest, even if it's an infidel, haram. So remember, never forget this. As long as you are within a village, you are safe. But the moment you step beyond its boundaries, the same host who was giving you tea 5 minutes ago can shoot you in the back with no hesitation. Because killing an infidel is an heroic deed.
It's a mitzvah.
A stairway to heaven.
What's up, man?
I'm telling you this for your own sake, soldier.
Russian army, my friends. Soviet. That's how we roll.
So here it is. Afghanistan. It is a multinational state with more than 20 ethnic groups living there. Tajiks, Turkmen, Uzbeks. Along the Pakistan border, you have the Pashtuns, and in the west, Khazars and other Mongolian tribes.
Pashtuns are supposedly Jewish.
Who settled here after the Mongol invasion in the 13th century. The word Khazar means 1,000 in the Turkic languages. Soldier. Is this not interesting to you?
Comrade Captain, does it make a difference who we kill?
In all of history, no one has ever managed to conquer Afghanistan.
Yep.
It's never happened.
And never will. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why. There are reasons why. Primarily the terrain. You know, you go into battle with an enemy that knows every single nook and cranny of the land. Guys, if you go back to the story of Hanukkah, right, for example, how did we defeat the Greeks? We defeated the Greeks via guerrilla warfare, via trapping these people in valleys. You know, we were in the mountains, they were in the valleys. We knew every single nook and cranny of those hills and valleys and mountains. And the enemy does not. You can send, you can have an overwhelming amount of troops, but if those troops are trapped in a valley and you've got them surrounded with firepower and you're basically, popping out of holes and you're popping back into holes, like playing whack-a-mole, there's no way to defeat someone like that. You could say, well, you can have overwhelming force, but even then, you pull yourself into protracted warfare, which is essentially what America's been involved in for 20 years. We've been there for 20 years. And to say that it's been a success, my friends, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know how you can measure success. I don't even necessarily know if you stopped terror, because you basically, okay, so like there was an entity called the Taliban who were abetting and aiding and abetting and housing a person by the name of Bin Laden and an organization called Al Qaeda. But now the sands have shifted. Now you have something called ISIS, and now you have other people. You have a loosely confederated, organization that's basically, they're all over the world. They have like PDFs, they have like websites. They're all over the place. They have social media. They're in Europe. They're in America. They're in the West Bank, the Judea and Samaria. They're not in Afghanistan per se anymore. So what have we accomplished really over 20 years? My friends, this is a place where unfortunately empires go to die. Whether you're talking about Alexander the Great, he got over there, he failed over there. This is essentially what caused really the Soviet Union to decline, because they went in and they were trying to essentially battle America on that terrain. America they tried to really take over Afghanistan itself. They tried to make it another republic, but America was working with the Taliban at that time. That's why a lot of people on the left-wing side of the political spectrum here say, well, we were helping Taliban against the Soviets. Now we're trying to battle the Taliban. America was doing that. The CIA was doing that. But this is something that started the process of the Soviet Union collapsing. As we say, we left the Soviet Union without pants. But that's how did this all start? It started in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was the Soviet Union's Vietnam. It's where empires go to die. And you guys saw, Soviet Union went in the late 70s, early 80s. They went into Afghanistan. They came out, and I think it was 1988, if I'm not mistaken. And 3 years later, poof. I mean, granted, there were other factors, Reagan, whatever it is, but here, Afghanistan conflict, USSR, Soviet-Afghan war. Yeah, it went from 1979 until, they had a coup, 79 until 1980, February 15th, 1989 is when they pulled out, and then, Geneva Accords, 1988. It's interesting, they signed Geneva Accords. I don't know if it was part of the... Yeah, this is the Afghanistan and Pakistan Accords, and then you're talking about something. I think it was the Soviet Union fell in 1991, I believe. I'll tell you guys right now. Yeah, that's it. 2 years later, poof. It was a process, right? It was a slow process, but 2 years later, gone. So now, guys, America sent in troops to Afghanistan in 2001. It's now 20 years later. There are many factors. If you guys consider all the things that happened in these 20 years with America, but really, essentially, it began with us going into Afghanistan and then subsequently Iraq, with all of the, I guess, now we can call them the deep staters, but at that time it was the neocons. And there's overlap, between the neocons and deep state, and whether you're talking about Republicans or what we call Bush Republicans and also some Democrats, it doesn't really matter, right? It's two sides of the same coin. It always was. And you guys probably noticed that we tried, Trump, when he was president, he tried to do a whole thing where he tried to draw down troops, but not, strategically, not in just indiscriminately, right? And now what we're doing is we're basically, leaving vacuums. We're doing the way that the Biden administration is doing things. They are just basically, I think what they want to do is just run America into a war. Or if nothing else, they want to draw all these different countries into regional conflicts. And the Democrats think, and deep state, they think that, okay, if that happens, we can have a reset. We can have an economic reset. Why? Because now we're restarting this whole military spending spree, and you're getting people like Northrop Grumman and all these other, these military contractors involved. And just like we did in 2003, we can restart the economy in that way, right? And if you guys remember what happened 5 years after that happened, we had a collapse in 2008, right? So you can only inflate these things for so long, whether you're going to, print money, whether you're going to get into wars, whether you're going to start wars, global conflicts, protracted, whatever it is, or shock and awe, as we say. But in the end, 5 years later, you're done. It's not something it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable policy. My friends, this is what they want to do. This is essentially what they want to do. And it's not going to lead to anything good. Like I told my friends today, honestly, we're looking at the barrel of a monetary disaster. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, guys, but we're looking at something, we're 100 years later now, the year 2021, and we're about to enter a new cycle of something that the last time we saw this was the Weimar Republic, guys. And you guys probably remember what happened in the fallout of the Weimar Republic. You had Germany, that was like shortly after World War I, and Germany went into a into a depression. And we know what happened after that. A gentleman came along and he tried to get Germany out of a depression. How did he do this? He did this via a war. Before there was a war, or via just, usurping the government, one-party system, and then he went to war. Tried to take over the whole free world. Before that, there was a monetary disaster called hyperinflation. In Germany, I was just telling my friends that I really hope America doesn't experience what happened in Zimbabwe. Well, I think it was 20 years ago, something like that. Hyperinflation. Again, guys, this is why people are flooding to things like crypto, and this is why there are projects in the crypto space that are being developed that are basically trying to, not be under the microscope of regulators. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's one of the projects is called Ripple, and Ripple is something actually that is involved. It's a coin that is actually tied in with, banks, places like Banco Santander, I think it is. I'll tell you guys right now in a second. Yeah, Ripple Global Payment Solutions, move money to all corners of the world. So these guys are basically trying to be like a legit kind of lightweight cryptocurrency and they're actually involved with, here you go, Santander, Banco Santander, which is I think in Spain, but they're all over the world. So Ripple are now involved in a situation where they are in a legal battle against the SEC. And I'll read you guys a recent article. Here you go. Here, Ripple lawsuit heats up. SEC takes aim at the heart of Ripple's legal defense. She says here, to the SEC's knowledge, no federal court has accepted a defendant's argument that the term fails to provide the constitutionally required notice. So this is all kind of like legalese stuff, but basically, there was an issue where, I'll just read to you guys. Where basically the people who founded Ripple were manipulating the price of Ripple, and the SEC is contending, well, Ripple is a security, right? It's like a stock, right? And Ripple's saying, no, we're not a security, we're a currency. So it says, a few days ago, the CFTC commissioner has expressed the CFTC's attention to the lawsuit filed by the SEC against Ripple Labs and its co-founders for having sold more than 14.6 billion XRP tokens worth 1.38 billion in an unregistered offering, according to the complaint. So basically, the way these things work, guys, what they have is called ICOs, initial coin offerings. It's kind of like an IPO, and they sell in open markets these coins to anybody who wants to buy them. And the people who founded them, they hold, at, I guess you can call it par value. They hold these coins at a very, very low price, and at some point they end up selling. I mean, it's completely allowed, right? See, the question of whether XRP is a security will be crucial. XRP is similar to Bitcoin or other digital assets, but also different in key respects, which prompted the SEC's investigation. Bitcoin was an open software project launched by a pseudonymous creator himself, calling himself Satoshi Nakamoto. XRP was created, sold initially, and backed by the company known as Ripple. Right, so it's a big difference here. You're talking about a company versus an individual who just created code. I'm watching the outcome of this case closely because it would help to establish the scope of SEC's authority in the digital assets. So, my friends, this case is huge because it's basically going to establish a precedent over whether or not cryptocurrencies are securities or are they currencies. Not only that, there are some that are kind of based on, were developed by actual companies, and there are some that are loosely confederated, kind of bunch of IT guys getting together and creating code. For example, there was one I'm invested in, I won't tell you guys which one, where there's a bunch of people around the world creating code, and there's a coin that was released, but it's not necessarily a company, it's just loose confederation of individuals, right? Decentralized. So here, Commissioner Stump said, drawing attention to SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce's work regarding the application of the How We Test to digital assets, which provides a framework for determining whether certain assets are securities. In the context of SEC, this is something I've been asking for a while now. SEC's lack of clarity, XRP Ripple holders lawyer John E. Deaton said it doesn't take an expert to see that plenty is very wrong, very corrupt, and very outrageous about the SEC's lawsuit against Ripple. He has recently published an op-ed stating his belief that the regulator is misleading the court as it secretly targets all Ripple holders with its SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. Johnny Deaton published the accusatory text against the SEC as the regulator welcomes Gary Gensler as his new chair. So, my friends, you see, like, basically, you have the SEC, you have the CFTC. These people are in cahoots with banks, and they understand that if they lose, now you have a case that furthers the idea that people can just invest in these things and not be under the guise of regulators. It's not entirely true because ultimately, for example, you have to pay, for example, taxes on your cryptocurrency, investments, on your winnings, so to speak, on your gains. But with that said, the more deregulation in this particular case, the better, right? See, not only the regulator is being attacked for having filed a complaint the day before the chairman, Jay Clayton, left his position, but for accusing Ripple's co-founders of bad faith while also being unclear about the security status of XRPs. This is more like kind of legal, I guess, wrangling in games. Most recently, the SEC raised eyebrows for protesting against a subpoena on One River Asset Management, which hired ex-SEC chairman Jay Clayton after he filed a complaint against Ripple the day before leaving office. Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson, Ripple's co-founders, have recently filed twin motions to dismiss the case against them. Actually, they hired a former SEC person, top dog, to be their lawyer in this whole case, my friends. So there is now a battle that is going to essentially set the tone, I guess, for the rest of history, legally, over whether or not these things are securities or currencies, how they're regulated, by whom, to what extent. And a lot of people are watching, but also, most people are kind of not privy to these things, primarily because a lot of people are just afraid of this stuff, and this is something that the governments are banking on, all the while themselves investing in these things, right? All the while, you had a guy like Jamie Dimon of I think he's of JP Morgan. I'll tell you guys. Yeah, I think it was when Bitcoin had that rally. What was it? 3 years ago. He said that I'm instructing anyone, all my management, any of their their employees investing in Bitcoin should be fired. Okay, so what happened? Bitcoin fell, and guess who invested in Bitcoin? Jamie Dimon himself, and all these other tycoons, and George Soros and other people. So. I want to read to you guys. It's very late, and I've had some wine here. Here, Zero Hedge. Let's go to Zero Hedge. Here you go. There we go. 5 minutes ago. Top Australian official warns drums of war beat as China tensions rise. I'll read this to you guys. And then I will... Wow, this is crazy. Interesting. I'll read to you guys another thing. About guns. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Just 1 second. Oh, this is so funny. Wow. Okay, sorry. We read already? Okay. I don't know what you guys are thinking about the war. Okay. Top Australian official. Okay, a senior Australian official warned that the drums of war are beating in comments to his staff over the weekend as relations between Beijing and Canberra continue to strain. In a world of perpetual tension and dread, the drums of war beat, sometimes faintly and distantly, and at other times more loudly and ever closer, said Australia's Department of Home Affairs Secretary Mike Pizzullo in comments that were made public on Tuesday. Today, as free nations gather again hear the beating drums of war and watch worryingly the militarization of issues that we had until recent years, thought unlikely to be catalysts for war, let us continue to search unceasingly for the chance for peace while bracing yet again for the curse of war. While Pizzullo did not mention China in the remarks that were published, it's clear that he was referencing tensions with Beijing in the Indo-Pacific. Australia has followed the U.S. in its military provocations against China and is a member of the Quad, a group that is seen as a possible foundation for anti-China NATO-style alliance with China. On Sunday, Australia's defense minister said the possibility of a war erupting over Taiwan should not be discounted and warned of regional tensions. People need to be realistic about the activity. Defense Minister Peter Dutton says there is a militarization of bases across the region. Obviously, there's a significant amount of activity and there's animosity between Taiwan and China. Beijing responded to Dutton's comments on Monday. China's foreign ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China hoped Australia would fully recognize the high sensitivity of the Taiwan issue and refrain from sending any false signals to the separatist forces of Taiwan independence. So basically, they're saying, like, just don't give Taiwan the guts to stand up to us by helping them. Australia-China relations have followed the trajectory of U.S.-China relations and are rapidly deteriorating, further straining ties. Last week, Canberra cancelled 2 deals between Beijing and the Australian state of Victoria that would have been part of China's infrastructure global project known as Belt and Road Initiative. My friends, so let's read the final. Beijing rebuked Australia's decision to cancel the projects and urged Canberra to abandon its Cold War mentality and ideological basis. My friends, if you guys remember how World War II started, Japan was pushed into an economic corner by America with regards to oil and other things, and they basically just attacked. And my friends, I won't be surprised if something in flames, God forbid, with Australia and China and Taiwan and stuff like that. Guys, I'm going to read you I'm just trying to decide if I should read to you guys. Yeah, they're talking about 3D people printing their own 3D guns and how the blueprints can be posted online without federal approval. Yeah, we know about all this stuff. Yeah, guys, I'll tell you something. People are going to start just printing their own 3D guns, and there's nothing that can. There's no way the government can ultimately stop people from acquiring firearms. We see that with gang violence, right? So it's just going to force people into these technologies. And I see this showing different parts. YouTuber Sean with 3D Print General recently attended a Bear Arms and Bitcoin. See, there you go. Bear Arms and Bitcoin, April 10th to 11th in Texas. He showed 3D printed guns have advanced over the years, can survive thousands of rounds of ammo. So it needs to be able to handle the casing has to handle the metal, the hot metal that's going through it, because you're printing plastic, right? Or hard plastic, but still, you keep regenerating these guns. Okay, so let's read to you guys some of these things that talk about the person known as Moshiach. And after I read these to you guys, I will sign off. And this will be, I haven't done one of these in a long time, what I'm doing with you guys tonight. As opposed to just something that's on a specific topic, I'm just, giving you guys a rundown. So here we go. Okay. Oh, this is regarding One of these things is regarding the government, and the other thing is regarding the Geulah, the stages of the Geulah, the stages of redemption. So here we go. This is regarding the government. Okay. This is I guess a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Don Segal, aka one of the Mashgichim, made an unusual statement today. He said reportedly that the wicked ones will not succeed in forming a government. He's talking about like the Erev Rav that are trying to make people who are anti-religious in the Knesset who are trying to form the government. You think there will be a government. I'm telling you there will not be a government. How do I know? The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that the Rav Hama Bar Hanina stated that Mashiach won't come until the petty government is ended in Israel. Rashi explains that they won't even have a light, even a light or weak rule in Israel from his mouth to God's ears. I hope it is a sign Mashiach's impending arrival. This is already the blogger writing. If it is, then all chaos may have been worth it, and hopefully this will be resolved soon and not take another 50 or 100, 1,000 years of hatred and fighting with unending election cycles before Mashiach comes. Hopefully it will be within weeks or even months. I am not quite sure if the use of the term wicked was necessary to make this point, but okay. I guess it's a general term. Oh, so here we go. Oh, this is Rabbi Kessen's latest shir. Rabbi Kessen graphically describes the reenactment of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of Egypt in our days, in 7 stages. We are approaching the next stage of our pre-redemption. It is important to listen once again to how he describes these levels of coming close to Hashem and his entry into our diminished strata in order to separate and then collect his children from the farthest reaches of the world. We are headed to the Pekida, stage 5, that has happened or about to happen, and only Hashem knows what is happening. Only Mashiach ben Yosef, MBY, knows what is happening to him. Also, Mashiach ben Yosef is already aware. This is the guy before Mashiach ben David. This week, Rabbi will cover over the next step we are in, B'ezrat Hashem, with stage 6, plus Pesach Sheni and Lag BaOmer. So, I actually have a friend who wrote a Times of Israel article on this shir, and I want to read to you guys basically kind of the rundown of some of the ideas. Let's go to his Rabbi Kessen's social media. My friend Rachel Diamond, she wrote a piece. Here we go. Sphira and Redemption, Part 1. This is Times of Israel. Okay. Here we are. This is kind of about the Omer, or Lag BaOmer, and stuff like that. Okay. Wow, this is pretty long, but I'll read to you guys. Okay. This lecture takes place in the midst of the counting of the Omer, leading up to the holiday of Shavuot, when the nation received the Torah at Sinai. The counting of the Sephirot, divine emanations, is explained as part of the rabbi's objective to clarify the significance of this special time within the context of Geulah and redemption. There's a pasuk, a verse in the Parshat Nitzavim, which says that the time will come for God to return with the Jews and gather them from among all the nations where God had dispersed them. The implication is that God accompanied the Jews into exile and returns with them. It further says that God will have mercy upon them. This stunning supplement implies that without such mercy, the Jews would be irredeemable. They are undeserving, as the rabbi has mentioned in previous lectures. The Jews are currently at a degraded level, at the 49th level of Tumah, defilement. Wow, that's crazy. Again, we're back to the same state as we were in Mitzrayim. Such level accounts for the current environment wherein suffering is pronounced due to the many kitrugim, prosecutions being brought against the Jewish people by God's premier heavenly prosecuting attorney, the Satan. The environment of ever-encroaching darkness and consequential suffering serves the demands of justice and helps to bring about atonement. So everything basically we're experiencing is a purification to placate the Satan so that we don't have worse things. And yet there must be mercy to alleviate the suffering, which would be, if truly commensurate with the extent of the sin, unbearable. Such is the recipe for rehabilitation without which the redemption could not occur. Another verse states that even if the Jewish people are at the ends of heaven, even from there, God will gather them. It tells us that God will not just gather the Jewish people from considerable distances, but will go himself into the pit, so to speak. What is the pit? It is the Tumah, defilement itself. It can also be regarded as the Klipa, that husk, that impediment that conceals God from humanity in the lowest of all possible worlds. This is an awesome gesture of God's compassion to enter into the Sitra Achra, the sort of haven of Satan to rescue us into the side of the impurity. The language of these actions God takes requires further analysis. First, God's actions are described as Yikabetzcha will gather you, and Yikachecha will take you, signifying two phrases of rescue/redemptive process. Then the verse Yacha bring you to the land of Israel to possess it permanently. Vechetivcha to do good for you. I make you more numerous than your progenitors. Cease further prosecutions that diminish Jewish populations. Also, God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your children, that there be no further obstacles to knowing Him and to cleaving to Him. These statements are clearly messianic. They actually describe the stages of redemption just as occurred in Egypt. Through analyzing them as prototypes, we can gauge the stage we are currently in and what we can expect to happen. The verse that includes the phrase, when all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse, help us recognize the nature of this time with all its suffering and inherent rescue. The former spurs the latter. The focus of this lecture is, as mentioned, the dual terms of to gather and to take. Since this gathering takes place with the environment of defilement, it begins in America and Europe, wherever Jews are, and then we are returned to Eretz Israel. The process begins within the exile itself, because only God can facilitate such a rescue from such degradation. This indicates how low the Jews have sunk. Yeah, guys, 80% of the Jews are distant from Torah and intermarried. Only the power of divine intervention can do this. Enter the Tumah, the defilement, to bring us back. The good news is that we don't have to figure it out and emigrate, and there we will meet Him. It happens in the Klipa, in those environments where most impediments are. America, Europe, everywhere actually, and Israel today presided over by the Erev Rav, this government supposedly, those Jews who hold sway over the country and discourage Torah. There is no nation as dispersed as the Jewish nation. It is into this vast expanse from the farthest reaches of heaven, dispersed geographically and spiritually, spiritually God enters to rescue us. Why are Jews so dispersed? It has been the Jewish mission to take out the Kedusha, the sparks of holiness that has been also been dispersed among the nations due to the negligence and laxity of Jewish observance. How are those sparks reclaimed? Observance and or suffering. What does kibbutz gather means? Kibbutz gather means that God has to separate from the nations, separate us from the nations, dislodge us from our assimilated selves. Excuse me. Jews in America, for example, see themselves first as Americans. So the first step is to impart a sense of distinction of being Jewish. Secondly, we must be gathered for the serious attempt of removal, spiritually and geographically. Kicha, take, indicates the period of ascertaining holiness. Something will happen indicating we are changing, while still in exile, prompting us to return to the land of our forefathers. The environment in the land will be such that it will be regarded as home, free of danger, risk, and detriment. V'hatava, doing good includes bringing those curses upon our enemies that we ourselves have endured through our history. It is both a redemption for us and a payback to the Gentile nations. But the essence of doing good for us is that we are brought back to Him. Different stages of reality, process of tikkun, essence of the journey of the Jew. The first reality is that of God, that He created. The second reality, the neshama, the soul, zuluso, and other, zulato, meaning that something other than God is the second reality, meaning like physicality, external, the world, whatever it is, materialism. This second reality of the soul is the greatest creation, not the angels. The instruments of creation are the sephirot, divine emanations, spiritual forces, but these are instruments, not the final grandiose product, the soul. The third reality is the world of spirituality, which is the interface between Hashem, Him, and the soul, Hashem and the soul. The angels too are intermediaries. God enclosed those in physicality to task us, to enable us to be tested. This task is to see beyond the veil of Geshem, physicality, and rain, and see the spiritual world. Our physicality is our garb, a costume. Eventually we can transform into the physical into the spiritual, and ultimately into that of primordial man. Adam Kadamon. Yeah. A reality which transcends even that of spiritual realms. That is referred to as Olam Haba, future world, where humanity's soul is one with God. Here comes the problem. This is what Adam, primordial man, was to have done, transform the physical into the spiritual and beyond. Instead, the actual he actualized a new reality which was there in potential, that of the Satan, the Tuma, the realm of the anti-God, where one believes that existence is independent of Hashem, of God. Physicality, money, whatever it is. This is the essential conflict. This is between the self, with its belief that one can do whatever he wants, versus the reality that God is the only true existence. Guys, that's why you see people like Soros and Putin and other people that just think they rule the world. That God is separate. Originally, Adam's task was to see beyond the veil of physicality, but due to the sin, he created a force, the Satan, a new obstacle to see the spiritual world. That obstacle is the force of Zoama, that which enables the Satan to manipulate with God's sanction, of course, because God created the Satan, the physical universe, and interact with it for the sake of justice. This force causes entropy, degradation, degeneration, decay. Now the job of a mitaken, rectifier, a person who does the tikkun, is to restore the world to its pre-Zoama state. It has been mankind's task, but since the time of Abraham, solely the task of... Just one second, guys, I want to see how much longer this is. I don't want to bore you to death. Wow. Okay, now it's finishing up. Okay, fine. Okay. It has been mankind's task since the time of Abraham, solely the task of the Jew to clean up the filth. The predominant being to rectify creation is Mashiach ben Yosef, followed by Mashiach ben David. You guys, you even see like all these lefty organizations, they all call themselves Tikkun Olam, these lefty Jews. They still want to fix their world in their own way. It's a little bit misguided, but that's a different conversation. The transformative process is to be completed by the year 6000 or 2240 in the Gregorian calendar. To understand the stages of this transformation, we can examine the events culminating in the exodus from Egypt. The Tikkun program is seen there, a prototype in 7 stages. Number 1, the creation of a people. Failure of mankind to achieve the rectification by Abraham's lifetime resulted in the flood. Noach and task being given specifically to Abraham and his descendants. They lived somewhat removed from the nations around them, the Canaanites principally, and cultivated and refined their service to God. Number 2, go down to Egypt. Once fortified for the task, they must reclaim the holiness lost to the Satan by going to the nation of the Satan's major agents, the magicians and all these kind of people. 3, resist temptations of the surrounding culture. No longer isolated, they must enter an alien culture, continue to observe God's commandments in a foreign and hostile environment fraught with temptation. Number 4, suffer and be dominated. Failure to resist the alien culture's immorality, depravity, the tendency to assimilate and become enculturated by them is paid for in suffering and enslavement, which brings atonement. This bankrupts the Satan of the Kedusha, holiness he gleaned through our assimilation. Number 5, redemption, the kibbutz and the kicha. The sparks have been successfully extricated from Egypt, and the Jews can be rescued and enjoy the fruits of redemption. The gematria of the Hebrew phrase that translates to leaving with the wealth is equal to the numerical value of sparks of holiness. The redemptive stage is also, as mentioned earlier, referred to as gathering/separating, taking and being recipients of God's goodness. In Egypt, the gathering was done with the instrument of the Torah. It is the only instrument that can be used to convey the purpose of creation, the concept of a spiritual universe. What was the Torah? They were given while still in Egypt to facilitate gathering and separation. It was the 10 plagues, which were analogues of the Sefirot, spiritual forces, because there's 10 Sefirot. Beyond being punishment to Egypt, these were divine revelations to the Jews. We see this in the plague of darkness, when the Hebrews experienced light, but not photonic light. Each plague brought its own insight into the nature of Hashem. This was the Torah to wake them up. This is borne out in the statement about a simple handmaiden enabled to have greater prophetic vision than Yehezkel, Ezekiel the prophet. The Kicha was the infusion of holiness, marked by the counting of the Omer, the 49 days of prophetic insight, the extent of which is beyond what we can imagine. This culminated in the visions, including and beyond witnessing the splitting of the Reed Sea. This is borne out in the fact that millions of individuals sang in unison the song of the sea. Number 6, Matan Torah, giving the Torah. God appears in his full glory. Other than primordial man, Adam, no man has ever experienced solely or collectively such revelation of God himself. This is equivalent to the transport of the nation to the land. And number 7, the Messianic era. Whereas the reception of the Torah at Sinai should have ushered in the Messianic era, at that time it didn't due to the sin of the golden calf. But we're always doing something. But the stages of that prototype will be repeated. This time, the transformation to that era of profound revelation will encompass the entire world for all mankind. By the way, guys, I don't know if you noticed the Oscars where they venerate this golden statue, had its all-time lowest, ratings, which was last year was 23 million. This year was below 10 million, 9 million. So now, final paragraph. The replication of these stages will be explained further in the rabbi's next lecture. We have already completed stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are heading into stage 5, where all the fun begins. We are about to enter kibbutz. This is where we are holding. The worst is ending. The darkness is ending, and the kibbutz reverses it, which is the ingathering. It was dark in Egypt, and it is dark by us. The makos bechoros was the last straw. The death of the firstborns is destroyed. It destroyed them all. They no longer had the capacity to do anything. There was no house that didn't have a dead body. That plague was for the Jews, the kibbutz, the revelation. We are now at the point of Moses at the burning bush, receiving his assignment to be the Moshiach. Interesting, my friends. I mean, you see what's going on. You see really what's going on with everything that I just talked about, my friends, with everything from geopolitics to economics, everything that's happening in America. You have a person like Hunter Biden giving a seminar about fake news. I'm not going to get into that. You know what? Let's read. I'm going to Google translate this whole thing about the rabbi that I mentioned. 1 second, guys. Okay. Yeah, here you go. It's Rabbi Dov. Is it Dov Siegel? Okay. Before the coming of Moshiach, the wicked would not be able to form a government. I'm just reading this as a Google translated from Hebrew, so excuse me, guys, if it's a little bit kind of broken up. There you go. Don Siegel, not Dov Siegel. Don Siegel, who's considered one of the greatest overseers, Mashgichim, over the generation, stated that the wicked will not. Okay, we already said this. We mentioned this. Okay. One of the participants in the lesson said that the fact that we are before the appointment of a Jew wearing a knitted kippah to the prime minister shows the complex changes that the people of Israel are on the eve of the coming of Mashiach. Yeah, guys, I don't know if you know, we're about to have a situation where we might have either Naftali Bennett as the prime minister for a certain amount of time, or we may even have a guy named by the name of Gideon Sar, the one that I've been talking about, the one the rabbi's been talking about, Rabbi Kessin, who is actually Shomer Shabbat, who's actually traditional person who wants to bring Torah education into schools. And my friends, we're about to witness something truly remarkable, and I spoke to Rabbi Kessin about this, and we said that it's possible, entirely possible, that we may have a government formed, if not by May 4th, by Shavuot, and it would be incredible for us to have a government that may reform the education system in Israel to be geared towards more towards Torah, not necessarily Haredi, but just towards Torah, on Shavuot, on the day that we receive the Torah. And that would be something, my friends. That would really be something. And that is where I will end this particular recording. And guys, tomorrow is Lag BaOmer, and it should be something interesting. And hopefully the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the secrets of the Torah will be revealed to us, and we will get a precursor to what we're about to experience on Shavuot. And hopefully all of these nightmare scenarios that I just described to you guys with respect to Turkey and Russia and Ukraine and China and Australia and Taiwan and America will be, and Afghanistan, where empires go to die, will be circumvented, and we will pass go, and we will collect 200 shekels and go directly to Mashiach, Bezrat Hashem, sooner than later. Alright guys, I'll talk to you very soon.